I think the mobility is a great piece that not a lot of people talk about. I mean, if you are mobile, you're willing to move for different roles as they open up, you're going to skyrocket compared to someone that says, no, this is where I'm going to stay for my entire career. Because at that point, you're at the mercy of other folks leaving or getting promoted, right?
Yes. And that's another reason why I was able to advance so quickly in the company I got into, is because I was willing to relocate. So I relocated initially out of the military, and then I relocated again to get my first district manager role. And I'm telling you, the only reason I even had that chance is because no one wanted to go up to the Northeast in this particular case. And I mean, that's where I was from originally. And so the fact that I was willing to move so quickly, I mean, that probably advanced me about 6 months sooner than the timeline was for me, just because I was the one guy who was able to do it right then and there. And then able to move again for where I'm at now. So yeah, I probably moved 3 times in 4 years now for my company. But those are the things you have to be willing to do if you want to be able to get that. Just what we talked about, such quick timelines to be able to move into levels of advanced responsibility.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, what else from your end? So there's agility. I think that's a huge one. What else is going to get someone to where they want to go a little faster?
Look, there's no two ways around it. Okay, just the hard work element too. Okay, so I'm a big work smarter, not harder kind of guy. Yep. But I mean, there's no replacement for the hard work piece. Okay, coming into the military, that's one thing that didn't change a lot. Okay, going from the military to retail is, I mean, it's about the same amount of time that I was spending there. You have to be willing to, the common misconception that Gen Xers have about us being millennials is just like, we're not willing to work, show up on time. Okay, now, I mean, there may be some validity to that statistically, but I think that's where you and I have kind of separated ourselves from the rest of the pack, is we have no problem, putting in the hours in order to be successful.
Yeah, you got to invest the time, right?
Oh yeah. So investing the time up front, being able to move like we had talked about, being able to network that is crucial. Okay, It really is. And I'm trying to think, just being a lifelong learner. You can't ever feel like you've reached this level where you know everything that there is to know about whatever role you're currently in. Okay, whether it was us when we were in the military, whether it was me being an operations manager or general manager or district manager, you just always have to be learning.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. And it's funny, as I was preparing for this interview, I knew that you and I were going to bring 2 different perspectives here, and I think they're in line. But I did a talk not too long ago at my old high school. I had a teacher that asked me to come in, and I've told you this story, so this is more for the rest of the audience, right? But he said, talk about whatever you think is important. I think at that point I was 9 or 10 years removed. I thought I had done some pretty cool things in my short time following high school. And so I went in talking about how to build your resume for free. That was the topic. That's why I was so excited to bring this idea to you too. So I go through my spiel. I go through, I graduated ROTC, got to do some cool things, jump out of airplanes at airborne school or whatnot, got deployed, went into corporate America. And, they asked if there were any questions at the end, and there was silence for a few seconds. And then one of the guys goes, "How much you deadlift?"
that was the big takeaway from the presentation.
And I'm like, man, this topic is absolutely needed if that's the feedback I get from a high school senior. But some of the key points that I made during that presentation was, one, get some keywords on your resume. There's really no certification or degree necessary to have experience doing something outside of your key function, right? So even I think back to when I worked at a restaurant in high school, if you can get some experience understanding inventory, maybe that's an additional role for you. Maybe you don't make additional money doing it, But if you seek out the opportunity to learn inventory or margin in a business like retail, you're going to be head and shoulders above the other folks. I mean, right or wrong.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I would say, and it's so funny because like I never had any of this. So I'm glad you got to experience it when you were in high school. But you know, I was fortunate. I had a family who was like, look, you just focus on school. Okay, don't worry about getting a job. Like we can cover your gas and stuff like that. Okay, until you
Mm-hmm.
graduate. So, man, when I came out, I had no actual work experience at all.
Yeah.
And so, had I been able to work in a organization, work in a company during even my time in high school, where even getting that customer service, getting like
Yeah.
basic inventory
Yep.
functions from a managerial standpoint, scheduling,
Mm-hmm.
any kind of HR, any kind of HR functions. So hiring, firing, raises, okay, stuff like that. Understanding labor to percent of sales.
Yep.
Um, what other kinds of things could you have? Could you get? Oh, anything related to profit and loss. Okay,
Yep.
so actually getting your name on a P&L. That's huge. I remember I had interviewed with another company after I had started with the one I'm with now. And I mean, the first question they asked with me being in a managerial role was, what was my annual operating profit for the business that it was like the first thing on there. So yeah, I'm telling you that piece is key, and you don't even have to, get into a district manager role like I am now, or go through the military in order to start gaining those kind of things you can have on your resume. Outside of the leadership piece.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And for anyone who's not familiar, P&L is a profit and loss statement, right? So it's a statement that shows where the money's coming in the business and where the money's leaving. It shows all of your expenses and whatnot. And if you can understand that and speak to it, I mean, and if you can own part of it, that's even bigger to your point, right, Evan? But no, all good stuff. And I think about when I left the military, right? So, or even going into the military, right? I started as a criminology and law studies major and got the opportunity to work in air defense in the Army as you did, right? On radars and some pretty high tech stuff, right? Which is really cool. But looking back at my background, I wasn't necessarily qualified to do that, but the Army trained me up, right? And then going from that role to corporate America, I was able to slide into a process improvement position, usually set aside for someone with an engineering background due to the leadership I gained from the previous role, right? And then after that, during that role, I got the chance to go to some Lean Six Sigma training, right? And I got to put that on my resume, which qualified me for the next position.
That's huge.
So, I mean, and I just think it's kind of cool when I stop and think about how I made myself qualified for the next role, without going out and spending my own money to get new certifications or whatnot.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is I would say my last 6 months. So as soon as I partnered with
Mm-hmm.
Cameron Brooks, it was 6 months before I left. And it was such an interesting time because now I knew that, 180 days from there, I would be interviewing with organizations. And they gave me 26 questions. It was 26 interview questions you could very easily change the word on them, and it's a totally another question. So these 26 really span the whole gamut of questions you would encounter in an interview. And there were some that I just didn't have answers to yet. So over that next 6 months, I either volunteered for things
Yeah.
or did projects in which I knew I could develop an answer for this exact question. Like I was like the man in the battalion for so many things because I knew there were certain experiences I was trying to gain before I left that time there, just so I knew that I'd have a really good answer during the interview process.
That's such a great point. And that goes back to what we were talking about not wasting the time that you're given. And even in your current
Exactly.
role, there's so many opportunities to get on a Lean Six Sigma team or a TPM team or some type of project team, right? And that's really what, when I'm hiring someone, that's what I want to hear about. certifications are all great, but I want to hear about the experience. I want to hear about how you implemented it or what the team did or whatnot. So that's another piece of advice is any opportunity to jump on a team like that and gain some experience is going to be huge.
Exactly. And as many things I know can be difficult getting outside of your comfort zone, but the more experiences you get, I mean, it just makes you such a well-rounded applicant. The more things that you can have on your resume that just cover uh, various responsibilities outside of what just would fall into your typical duties, it just makes you that much more appealing to a hiring manager. It really does, and get those key phrases that we were talking about that
Yep.
would get you through the hiring process, in order to get that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the last one I had is ask yourself, what does my boss care about? What does my boss's boss care about? Right. And you'd be shocked at how easy it is to get that answer. Just ask them.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like if you understand those two things, and I think that goes back to our military days, right? Understanding the higher mission, 2 levels above your own, is critical in understanding your role in the organization or in the mission or whatnot. So, what's your take on that?
I mean, I live by the mantra: if it's important to my boss, it's important to me.
Yep.
Okay, I'm all about that. And exactly what you said. You mentioned a very important piece there: 2 levels up. So I can tell you now, as a district manager, I report to my direct supervisor is the division manager, and then he reports to the vice president. Okay, so knowing what the 2 of them are focused on, which you can be in some organizations where the company is like very in tune with what the goals are for the organization that year and everyone works towards that. Or you can be in an organization, or you just have a certain chain of command where the VP's focused on X, the division manager is focused on Y, and then it's very important you're focused on probably both those things, okay, and in the role I'm at, because I want to please both my supervisor, okay, and my senior rater, to put it in Army terms.
Yep. And I don't think it matters what level you're at, right? I mean, your
Oh yeah,
boss will.
that goes for any level. Okay,
Yep.
even if you were a cashier,
Yep.
if I was a cashier somewhere, I'd want to make sure that I know what my shift leader deems important, okay, and then what my general manager is focused on. You just want to make sure that you're pleasing all those in your chain.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I mean, that's all I had on my list. Did you have any other key takeaways?
But no, I'm
No.
telling you, I just love that's why I was so happy when you asked me to talk about this topic, because especially when you're in college, there's so much you don't know. What I wouldn't give to be able to talk to my college. I don't even know if I would have went to college, honestly, what I know about corporate America.
Right.
But just the experiences that you gain, and just the constantly focused on building your resume. That piece is huge. And I feel like so many people, they just get into like a dead end job, or they get into what's comfortable, and that's kind of it, where the whole name of the game for me when I left the military was upward mobility. It was like the sole thing I was focused on when I was interviewing with companies. And to me, that's what it's all about. There were a couple of jobs that I looked at that I think I could have done well for myself, a couple of corporate sales jobs, but there wasn't anything above that, where I was looking for the company who wasn't just looking at me to fill an immediate need, but the company who was like, I could see this guy, filling the next 2 or 3 positions from here. That's what I was looking for.
That long-term perspective is key, right? And I mean, even if you are, again, working at a restaurant, you're in high school or whatnot, I mean, just understanding that it's not just about the dollars, right? One of the hangups that I see is, well, I'm not going to take this additional duty because I don't get paid more for it, right? It's not about the dollars. Yeah. Think about, okay, maybe you don't get paid extra for it hourly, but you are adding to your resume, right? You are working on that long-term approach, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I see that mentality in so many people. I really do, where they're like, no, I'm not going to do any additional work, okay, unless I'm getting paid for it. But there is so much that goes along with that. So one of the things over this last year that I've done, in addition to my job now, and for no additional pay, is, I worked on the company's first college internship program. Okay, they've never had a structured internship program for college students. So I helped work on that, and I was the mentor for college students. I'm on the company's district manager forum. So it's like a think tank of district managers, just of various things we can work on to either fix efficiency issues or communication with corporate or rolling out new projects. Did that. I initiated an emerging leader program for my division. Okay. And so these were all like very time consuming endeavors to get into, but they increased my networking in the organization. Okay. And some of these were really high vis programs. Okay. So it gave me more exposure. Yeah, I wasn't making any more money, but it gave me more exposure to key players in the organization. Okay, it let me increase my network of peers because I was working with a lot of different district managers outside of my division for these projects. Okay, and then also something as simple as at the end of the year, okay, I knew, and this is what we talk about with the long-term perspective, I knew there's an evaluation question, okay, for my big annual eval with my divisional and my VP of what did you do to better the organization? And for any of my peers who were just DMs, I mean, they didn't really do anything. Yeah, they made the company some more money as a district manager, but they didn't do anything outside of that. They did where I could say helping out the college interns, working on the emerging leaders, all the different projects I worked on the DM forum. Okay, and I mean that's all those experiences. Okay, and being able to have that on my resume worth so much more than just asking for a raise or just denying it because I wasn't getting any additional pay for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff, man. Well, we covered a ton today. I really appreciate you being here. If anyone has any questions for you or whatnot, or would like to reach out, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So I would say best way would just be to send me an email. Okay, my personal email is evan.greco, GRECO 59 @gmail.com. But that would probably be the easiest way. And I'm always willing to help out.
Good stuff. Well, thanks again for your time, my friend. I appreciate it.
No problem. It was good getting to see you again.
Yeah, you too.